Welcome to I'll Be There, the ultimate wedding podcast by Priya
and Nim
from Pristine Events. Whether you're a bride-to-be
or a groom gearing up
or just a wedding lover at heart, we've got you.
Welcome back to the next episode of I'll Be There by Pristine Events. I'm Nim.
I'm Priya.
And today we're going to be continuing talking about bars and drinks.
Yeah, so I feel like we covered a lot of the major stuff last time, but that was all mainly to do if you were providing your own alcohol, because we get asked that all the time for like a solution, an equation, or just a list of how many things to buy. Today is talking about, I guess, all the other bar logistics and like the fun stuff, like how to personalize your drinks. So yeah, I've obviously made some points. I'll just go straight in and you can lead on this because this is your forte. I thought, let's talk about for a drinks reception versus dinner. Yeah. What drinks do you have at what part of the day?
Yeah, so I think typically in our sort of weddings, we'll have a civil or a religious event in the morning, and then in the same evening, we'll have the reception. Mm-hmm. So normally the civil of the wedding doesn't have any alcohol before that. So typically you might just have juices, water beforehand.
On that note, sorry to interrupt, but actually a lot of people don't know this because for, like you said, you typically don't have any alcohol. They're actually not allowed to have any alcohol.
I was about to say that.
Oh,
but
sorry.
No, it's a good point. It's a good point.
Only because I'm remembering that Waldorf wedding that we did, and on the side, they had all the champagne like ready to go. So as soon as the civil was finished, people could come and get a drink. Yeah. But then the registrar was really strict and was like, there can't be any alcohol in the room whatsoever. So we had to literally remove all of the champagne from the room.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're getting married in the UK, and I'm not sure if this applies to other countries, we should probably check that. But yeah, if you're having an official registrar who's legally marrying you in that ceremony, you're not allowed to have alcohol. And most of them are very strict. If you're having a celebrant, it's different. So celebrants aren't formally marrying you. It's more just for appearances.
Yeah.
And they're very good. Celebrants are very good, and that's a great option. We'll go into that on another episode. But yeah, you can't have alcohol beforehand. They can't have glasses around the ceremony. Some of them partly because of the alcohol, but other times it's because of the noise that it might make. But afterwards, they're generally quite relaxed, and then you can have some Prosecco afterwards or beers afterwards. But yeah, so that's normally the morning, the religious or the civil event. And then in the evening is typically where you have the wedding breakfast, as people call it, or the drinks reception and then the dinner. So I think most weddings will have a drinks reception where you have floating canapes, and in that period you'll either have a cocktail hour or you might have beer and wine. Yeah. And I think that's completely personal preference. Typically the more cost effective option is just getting the Prosecco and the beers. You can either provide that yourself, and we talked through it about in terms of numbers the last time. Or you have cocktails. Now, if you're having cocktails during this period, occasionally your caterer might be able to provide those. In our experience, caterers are very good at efficiency, but they aren't necessarily trained in making cocktails. And sometimes I've seen them just kind of pouring cocktails out of a big vat or a big keg of pre-made cocktails. And there's nothing wrong with that if you like the taste of cocktails, and that's purely the reason why you're getting it. But most people, I think, get cocktails because it adds a bit of pizzazz to their drinks reception. And I think to have that, you need to have a proper bartender, and you need to have a cocktail or bar company coming in and making those cocktails for you. So with the garnishes, with the different equipment they have, for example, they've got those
flavor guns.
Those flavor guns, love those. Nice stands for the cocktails if they're sort of pre-making a few of them to make it look nice. Coasters, straws, a bar menu, all those kind of things. Typically the bar menu, the bar company will provide those. And then there's the reception. So during the reception itself, people might opt to have drinks flowing throughout and only close it for the purposes of speeches or dances. And that might mean that you can get any drink that you want. So that can be mixers, that can be beers, that can be Prosecco, that can be cocktails. Personally, I prefer, and I think we both prefer, sort of separating things out. So if at the drinks reception you've had beer and Prosecco, then when you come in, there might be something slightly different. So cocktails, for example, you can only get cocktails at the beginning. And then after a certain period, so for example, when the dance floor opens at 10 p.m, then you have the mixers. And I think that's a good way of making sure people don't get a bit carried away. Yeah. Or when guests come in for the seated meal, you just allow them to have beer and wine. So that's wine at the table, or they can go to the bar and get beer. And I think that, again, that's a good way of sort of making sure people don't get too rowdy and too carried away.
Especially if you've had a lot of alcohol in the drinks reception, so people would already be, those that drink would already be quite tipsy already. So then it's quite nice, like you said, to come in and have like a bit of a break from that before it's the hardcore spirits.
Exactly.
But I do think you have to know your crowd, because if your crowd are big drinkers, if there aren't certain spirits or things available from the beginning, like, they get really aggy. Like the amount of times we've had guests come up being like, why is the whiskey not being served, or why can we not get this, or like when will the bar be properly open?
I think and on that note, actually one of the funny things is sometimes often it's the couple who book us for a wedding, and they may not have communicated things to their immediate family or their close family, but their family might be paying for things. So we've had experiences where, you know, they've said, look, we don't want the bar to be open during XYZ period, or we only want certain drinks to be served during XYZ period. And then family members come and say, do you know who I am? I am the father, cousin, brother of the bride. You need to open the bar now. And it can get a little bit awkward. Yeah. So I think, you know, if you are going to make that decision as the couple, great. But I think make sure you communicate that to, I mean, not necessarily everyone. It's not everyone's business, but I think the close people who, if they're paying for it, I think you should probably let them know what they're paying for.
Yeah.
And if they're going to get quite heavily involved and they would normally expect to be drinking from the moment they walk in, I think it's important to let them know.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good thing. And what about like singles and doubles then? Like, would you, because I think the hard thing is a lot of people that do like drinking will ask for doubles.
Yeah.
However, like you said on the previous episode, people will have a few sips and leave it. So you're actually getting through alcohol quite quickly. So what would you recommend? I can't remember. What did we do at our wedding? I don't even...
For our civil or for...
I mean, either.
Our destination wedding?
Because destination, we ran out of alcohol very quickly, probably on the fact that everyone got doubles, and it went all out alcohol for 3 days, finished in 1 day.
Let's just make it clear that I made my calculations for weddings after we did our wedding. So that's why. For ours, there was no limit. You could get whatever you want.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just, again, if you want to talk about our civil, so we had a drinks reception where we just had beers and Prosecco. And then when guests came in, we had kind of cocktails ready so they could have cocktails. And then when they sat down, we closed the bar during speeches and dances, but they could still get cocktails and spirits throughout the night.
That's my favourite kind of wedding, though.
Yeah.
But I'm a massive cocktail person, so I'm really biased. If there's cocktails at the drinks reception and then cocktails again at the actual reception, that's like amazing for me.
I mean, that goes against what I said earlier about
I know.
splitting things up. But I think, again, it depends on your crowd. I think we had a lot of your friends and your guests like the idea of cocktails, and I think aesthetically it looks really nice.
Yeah.
My friends care less about that. I think once they've had a couple, they're okay with it. But generally, they then want to kind of move on to the next stage of things. And I think had we decided, okay, we're just going to have beer and wine until the dance floor opened, I think we would have had some unhappy guests, at least on my side.
Yeah. And also, I think people wouldn't have loosened up as much to then go on the dance floor as quickly. And with our friends who like to have some drinks before they dance.
And I think it's important to know how long your event is. So at our civil, it finished at, I think, 12.
Yeah, 12.
Yeah, so it's a relatively early finish for at least an Asian wedding.
Yeah.
So I think if we had only started serving spirits or hard liquor after 10 or whenever the dance floor opened, I think it may have been too late for people to suddenly feel like they can start getting into the swing of things. But going back to your point about singles versus doubles, I think if you're going to serve spirits, you shouldn't tell people how they can have their spirits, because people, if they really wanted to, can work around it. Then they'll just ask for 2 drinks.
Yeah, fine.
I think where I've seen it happen more often is when you're buying the drinks from the venue.
Okay.
And so the venue are charging quite extortionate prices, and so there's no drinks package. You are essentially paying off the bar tab at the end of the night.
Fine.
And so they limit people to getting a single versus a double, because, you know, as long as you've got a drink in your hand, you kind of feel okay for the time being. Again, people will try and work their way around it and say, can I get, you know, a whiskey on the rocks and then a whiskey with Coke, and then
put it together. Yeah, fine.
Become their own cocktail makers and do it themselves. But yeah, I think it's a good option if you're concerned about your guests getting carried away and it's going to be a long night. Then I think maybe do singles for a certain period of time and then doubles afterwards, or even the other way around.
Yeah.
So you've had the doubles and then it gets to a point, I think maybe at 10 p.m. where people don't really know. And as long as they're going to the bar and saying, hey, can I have a vodka soda? And they're being given a drink, I don't think they're necessarily going to say, hey, hang on, this isn't strong enough.
Yeah. That's a good idea, actually, to do doubles at the beginning and then kind of wean everyone off towards the end.
Yeah, I mean, on that same note, I remember, I don't think we actually did this, but I remember an idea I had for India, for our destination wedding, was that we'll have the nice premium spirits at the beginning, so the ones which are on display, so your Grey Gooses and your expensive whiskies, and you can have that at the beginning. But then as people are asking for drinks later on in the night, just give them
they have no idea what they're even drinking.
The old
That's
Glens.
also a good idea.
Yeah.
That's actually, yeah.
I mean, that's also a good
notice.
idea, and it depends on your bar company. But people often do that with their cocktails because they've got, you know, the sweet spirits, which not spirits, sorry, the
syrups.
The syrups,
yeah,
like the Monin syrups, etc. That can almost take away from the fact that you're using a slightly cheaper spirit. But I think if you're going for a high-end bar company, they won't be happy with that, and they'll say, no, we need to have premium spirits for our premium cocktails and our premium glassware. It depends on who you pick.
I feel like I'm quite basic with my spirits. Like, I genuinely, if I was getting like a vodka lemonade, I don't think I'd be like, oh, this is Smirnoff, or oh, this is.
I think you would.
Would I?
Yeah.
Maybe I just don't drink it enough anymore.
You get more cocktails than anything else.
Yeah, I'm not really a spirit gal, so I feel like I can't comment. But if you do, you will notice the difference.
Yeah.
So again, know your crowd in that sense. Okay. They're all really good tips because I think people don't know how to space out the day. So like for our civil, like you said, it started at 4, so we didn't have to worry about it being 4 till 12. It wasn't a crazy long day, but some of these days, like the civil we went to in Portugal last week, we left the hotel at 1:30 and then we came back at 2 a.m. So it was a 12-hour day. So a day like that, it's really good to space it out, I think, like you said. Let's talk about physical bar, which is a topic that I love talking about because I genuinely feel from like a decor, aesthetic, guest experience point of view, if you've got the budget and if you've got the space in your venue, having a cool physical bar can really elevate your event.
Yeah.
Like for our engagement party, when we had like, for context, a winter themed engagement party. It was like a winter wonderland themed. So it was in January and it was like a clear marquee. And I knew I didn't want to like spend loads and loads of decor, but I thought if we had like a central point of a bar, that could be like the decor for the whole event.
I'm smiling because I'm convinced I came up with this idea.
I have told you a million times you did not.
I
found you the WhatsApp conversation when I literally said, and I found a Rhino.
I think you may have found the
company.
I'm sure I came up with the idea.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't. It was my idea, and I found the company. Anyway, so
Neil, when you're editing this, it was me.
Anyway, so as I was saying, so the bar can actually really elevate the whole room. So for our engagement party, that was the center point of the room. It was a huge 360 circle bar. It was in the middle. We hired like a big tree to go in the middle of it even more. So that was like the focus point. And then it meant that you don't really need to do anything else because you've got some seating areas, you've got your DJ booth, you've got your dance floor, but your bar is like your decor and your central point. So I think obviously look at your venue, see if there's already an existing bar there. If there is, don't just assume that you can use it. A lot of the time, if you're getting a venue on dry hire, you're not always guaranteed to use the bar unless you're buying their alcohol or using their bar staff. So that's another thing to just check. But if you can use it, great. Just see obviously how big it is, if it works for your bar company and things. But if you've got room in your space, I would say look to try and get a circle bar because it's really social, you can see everyone, or square bars, rectangular bars. Like I've seen they do like the cool rhomboid shaped ones as well. Like just try and be a bit imaginative with it if you've got the space, I think.
I mean what I would say, that's a really good point, or a few points. It depends on your venue. So if your venue has a physical bar, first of all, if it's in the main event room, I think if you're going to then construct a new bar, you're just going to eat into space. I would say that if you've got a physical bar there, you should probably use it, unless it's in another room. So sometimes you have a physical bar in another room and it draws the crowd out to go get their drinks, and that can take away from the dance, the music, and sometimes empty out the hall. And we've seen that happen before. And you're trying to bring everybody back in, but ultimately if the bar's somewhere else, that's where they're going to go. That's
a really big point, actually. I think we've been to weddings where everyone's literally been in the other room, and we're trying to get them back in for the first dance or for a same day edit, like preview and stuff, and they're all just hanging in that room. So I think if that's the case, then you need to pick your venue based on your concerns at the beginning. You can't then come in and say, oh, we need to move the bar, because there probably won't be any space in the room if the bar's in a separate room. They've thought about that probably beforehand, whoever the venue are. But going on to your point about sort of jazzing things up, I think if you've got a physical bar and it's in the appropriate space, then I think a nice thing to do would just be to kind of put your logo on it or put some sort of covering on it that fits the theme of the event. And your decor company might be able to do that. Your AV company might be able to do that. There's a few that we know who are very good at that. And like you said, if there's no bar there, or you just want to get your own bar and there's enough space for it in the venue, then definitely go for something slightly different. What I would say, and things to remember, are that it's not just, you might think, oh, it's just a bar, it's just, some
plastic and some wood for the actual structure of it,
Yeah.
and your logo on the front. But there's more to it than that, particularly if you're getting a bespoke bar company.
Yeah.
You should speak to them about what their requirements are. If there's a physical bar in the venue, typically it will have, I keep saying typically, it will have a tap, it will have a fridge, it will have somewhere to store the ice.
Mm-hmm.
If you're constructing a bar, they will give you the different options. And if you think that you can get away with just getting the most basic one, i.e. just effectively a table or some sort of structure which is covered by your logo, you should double check, especially if you've got a premium bar company, because their requirements might be, we need, X amount of space countertop, we might need a massive vat to put all the ice in, we might need taps, we might need an exit point for us to go and refill. All of these kind of things you need to think about. So if you're getting a bar company, have these conversations with your bar company before you get the bar.
I think especially if you're hiring different, like, so for example, for our engagement party, the physical bar was from a different company.
Yeah.
The bar company was a different company.
Yeah.
So in those situations, you have to definitely make sure that.
Obviously, if your bar company were doing it themselves, I'm sure they would be able to work with them directly and just say, look, this is what we want.
Yeah.
Just get whatever you need to make
it work, basically. Yeah. And I think on that quick note as well, before we move on to like bar logistics, we obviously, I was like, let's put the tree in the middle of the bar.
I was literally just thinking that.
We're so insane. How cute. So which obviously was great because
let me explain it properly so it's clear. So obviously we had, Pri's already described it, we had a sort of glass structure type marquee. In the middle we had our circular bar, obviously the bar stoffer in the middle of that bar, and then Priya wanted to get a tree in the middle of the bar. So we found a company that it wasn't even a decor company, you just basically hire individual pieces of furniture, which was quite cost effective. And I went there to go look at the different options, and they had this tree which Priya described as piddly. But fortunately that was the only tree that they had, and it was the perfect size because we had 3 bartenders walking around this tree, and had it been any bigger with the branches hanging down above their heads, they wouldn't have been able to move around. So all of these different things, especially if you're doing a more do-it-yourself type event, definitely take that into consideration and speak to your bar company to tell them what they're going to be working with on the day. I mean, luckily our bar company were great. And
they were amazing. But I think I didn't even think to give them a heads up about the tree back then. So again, that's another thing to bear in mind. We're actually doing a wedding in the Cotswolds, the one at the beginning of August, that I basically convinced the couple to do a circle bar with a tree on it after I showed them our engagement pictures, because they're doing it in a marquee, and I was like, trust me, you won't need loads of decor if you have this. But for that, because it was a reception, I was like, I literally said, don't get a piddly tree, because this is the centre point of your whole reception. So they actually were hiring it from Twilight Trees, which if anyone needs like really big statement trees, either for decor or for like inside your bar, they do amazing like real life size trees. So I think if you wanted that extra wow factor, then I think doing it like on that scale, we'll be able to give it that, just as like a little tip. Okay, boring stuff, which I know is stuff that you speak to our couples about, but like bar logistics, how do you work out how many bar staff to ask for? I know the bar company will probably give you an estimation, but like if you want to try and avoid queues, because queues are the worst thing when you're waiting around for a drink at a wedding for like 20 minutes. I mean, I think this comes down to the bar company that you're choosing. So most people will pick a bar company that they've seen at a wedding, or somebody that's been recommended to them. And I think if that recommendation has come truthfully, rather than they're getting some sort of backhand payment, it's because they did a good job at that event. And I think a lot of that comes from estimating the number of people that you need for that event, and being able to serve people in an efficient way. It's a lot of waffle to effectively say, I think your bar company should guide you on this. For events of about 300 guests who are predominantly drinkers, I think you would need at least 4 active bar staff. Agree.
And that's what bar companies that I've spoken to have said, and that's what they generally recommend. Sometimes they'll give you the option and they'll say, look, we can have our bases for every extra person, it's going to be some amount of money. But you have to bear in mind that one of the things that people get the most annoyed about at weddings is waiting at a bar, including and queuing for everything. But that's not, it's not even because I really want to drink that badly. It's because it's part of it. Well, I mean, that's part of it. It's also because it's taking away from your night.
Agree.
And it's just frustrating because if you're a couple who drinks and your guests drink and there is an open bar, if the limiting factor is the number of bar staff that they have, when the alcohol's all there, but you just can't access it, it's a really frustrating position to be in.
And we have guests complain to us and be like, the queue's too long, they need to serve quicker, I've been waiting for ages.
And if you're opening and closing bars during speeches and dances and people can't get their drink, they'll just be like, no, don't close the bar. And we're like, no, we have to close the bar. And they'll just be like, I haven't got a drink. And you don't know what to say to that because you know, if you've got 2 bar staff serving 300 or 400 people, unless like they're incredibly efficient or they've pre-made the drinks. I mean, that's another good option. Like I've seen where they've had bar staff, and I've sort of, this wasn't even officially doing it. I sort of coordinated the bar staff at a friend's wedding where I just said, look, just pre-make. They didn't have cocktails at this point. I just said, look, pre-make or pre-pour the vodka and pre-pour the whiskey, because those are the 2 most common drinks. And then you can ask them what they're going to have afterwards. And then you can just drop the ice in. They have 3 people. Sorry, did I say 2 people? Yeah. They have 3 people. So I said one person just man this spirits table of vodka and thing and just put the cube of ice and then just add probably Coke and soda water in either of them respectively.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it sped things up pretty quickly. I mean, normally you shouldn't have to guide your bar company like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was an interesting day.
That's a good idea. But I do think that, like you said, with the whole queuing thing, it does, like, we have people complain to us, and then with, like you said, with the opening and closing, and I think it just makes people angry.
Yeah.
So I think
that's the worst thing. So
like,
if you're trying to skimp on things, whether it be with drinks or with caterers, and then we're the face of the event, or quite often we're the face of the event, and we just hit the brunt of everything.
Yeah.
You know, like, why wouldn't we send invitations at a certain time? Or, you know, why isn't there this food on the menu? Or where is my food? Or my food is cold, or my drinks are this, and you're just like,
okay.
Okay. But you can't just say that and just walk off. You kind of have to try and sort it out.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think with the whole bar thing as well, when you get to that situation where we're just closing it, and then people are like, but I just got to the front of the queue, I've been waiting for half an hour, I'll be like, oh my God. Then I'll usually be like, okay, go and sit down, I'll bring you your drink really quickly. Just so that they don't get really angry. But I think,
waitress.
Yeah, well, obviously, and you're like shop boy to the dance floor, the amount of times we have to just like put on loads of different hats. But yeah, so I think that's a really good point. I think just pay the extra to get extra staff. Because also, even if they say they're bringing 3 people, like you said earlier, one of those people will probably be a runner, collecting the glasses, filling up ice. They're not actually actively serving. So make sure you know how many staff are actively serving. The next thing, actually talking about ice, is who provides that. How do you know? Like, because a lot of people assume it's the bar company.
I think I touched on this last episode. But essentially, if you can avoid providing the ice, avoid providing the ice.
Yeah.
And that means if you've got a bar company, get them to do it. If you've got a caterer, get them to do it. Or if the venue say that they can provide it, that would probably be my preferred option, as long as they're getting the right quantities for your drinks team or your bar team. The reason for that is because ice on the surface, I'm sure people have had barbecues at home, and then you buy the ice and it's a hot day, and that's the only time people in the UK buy ice. And then you have nowhere to store it because you don't have space for 7 bags of ice like 4 hours before the event starts, and it's all going to start to melt. You have nowhere to store it. So you'd assume and you'd hope, and more often than not is the case, that if your venue are buying the ice, they will find somewhere to store it. Or if they have an ice machine and they're allowing you to use it, then you've got the ice covered. Just because you can buy ice for £1 doesn't mean it's only going to cost £7 for the ice. They might charge you £50. They might charge you £100. But it's about the storage of that ice, and it's ensuring that you have the right quantities of it, which is more important than anything. Don't think that you can just provide the ice and just leave it in a room, because then you have water. Yeah.
Literally, preach. So basically try and get it from the venue if they offer it, even if you have to pay a bit extra.
And if they have an ice machine, try and get that from them. Most big venues do, because they've got a bar there, or they've got some way of providing alcohol or a fridge or something. So yeah, definitely ask them if you can use the ice machine. And sometimes it might be an additional cost, but pay for it.
It's worth it. Yeah, agree. We realised that this summer when we did a flat party at our flat, and we bought ice, and then we didn't have anywhere to store it, and then we also didn't have an ice bucket, and it was just it was a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, we had an ice bucket, but it doesn't like keep it like a freezer.
Yeah, exactly. So it all melted. So yeah, I can't even imagine doing that on a big scale. The other thing is also glassware, which we have a lot of issues with, where like caterers are bringing the dinner glassware, which goes on the tables. Bar company will obviously bring their own glassware, but then there can be a bit of a mix up. So it's just making sure, and also confirming, don't just assume that they are bringing glassware. Some bar companies will say, okay, we'll use the caterer's glasses. So they all work so differently. So just have that like clarified and in writing as well, so that there is no confusion.
And I think the easiest thing to do is, especially if you've got a coordinator or a team doing month of management like Pristine Events, we'll be there on hand to ask these questions. And a good way of avoiding that is either getting your caterer to provide all the glassware, so that's the wine glasses, the tumblers on the tables, and even the tumblers for the drinks at the bar, which are being served by the bar company, or just ensure that they've got different types of glasses. So all the wine glasses supplied by the caterer, and then all the tumblers and cocktail glasses supplied by the bar team. And that way, at the end of the night, each of the teams know exactly what's theirs. I mean, for the most part, it's not going to come down on you as the couple, because it's their glasses. But I just think it's a good thing to sort out beforehand.
Yeah, exactly.
Which takes me back actually to another wedding that we did where the couple had asked for a champagne tower to be organised by the bar team, but again hadn't communicated. I mean, I blame the bar team for this, but they said yes, but they weren't providing the glasses for the champagne tower.
What?
So they just said that they would assemble it, and I'm like, but the whole point is that you provide the stuff for the champagne tower. But I mean, this was like the conversation like 3 or 4 days before, and then I realised it and then told them, and then we had to buy like coupe glasses off the internet, and then they assembled it. But yeah,
wasn't there another one that you actually assembled the champagne tower at?
That was a different wedding. Yeah, again, because the couple had said we want a champagne tower, but this time they hadn't spoken to the bar company. They just said that that's what they want. And then when we asked the bar company, they said that they weren't insured to do it, which I've spoken to a different bar company and they said there's no such insurance for that. But either way, I just did it myself.
I'm really impressed that you did that, because I actually think it was quite scary to put together.
Yeah, I mean, it's the couple's glasses, so like I'm pretty sure I told them, I was like, look, I'm happy to do it, but if something breaks, it's not my fault.
We're not liable, yeah. But it's not even if it breaks like before, it's just more just like during it. Like I don't care if it breaks afterwards, but like during the pouring, I'd be like, I mean, it sounds like it was all fine. You're good at this kind of stuff. So, yeah, if anyone needs any more champagne towers, names on
it's add-on service.
Okay, we need to wrap this up now. I feel like there's so much to talk about with bar stuff.
I don't think we have to cover everything today. And I think in the future, we've got some bar companies that we're going to bring on. And I think it would be great to have their perspective on things. Yeah. Maybe they might disagree with a lot of things that I've said about it. But, Can
we quickly just end then on alcohol-free non-drinkers, just how to include them?
I think it's a really good point. And I think these days more and more people are deciding not to drink for whatever reason, and that's great. I think if it's for health reasons, and this might be sort of a blanket statement, I think most of these people would still be okay with drinking 0% spirits, 0% wines, particularly if they've drunk alcohol before. And I think that's a great option to have, particularly if you're having mocktails. So your equivalent, okay, this is not a mocktail, but like a gin and tonic with a 0% gin.
Yeah.
And then the same, an Aperol spritz with 0% Aperol. Like they do all of these things. And I think it's nice because they feel like they're also part of the event, you're non-drinkers. I think where it can be more of a tricky situation is if it's for religious reasons that you're not drinking.
Yeah.
Because, again, I'm no alcohol-free expert, but I think that they remove the alcohol afterwards when they're like processing these spirits.
Okay.
So I think the fact that it had alcohol and then it's been removed, I think they still may not drink it. Again, don't quote me on that. But I think if it's for religious purposes, you yourself, if your whole guest or crowd are of a particular religion and you're deciding not to do alcohol for that reason, then you will hopefully be able to make that decision.
Yeah.
But either way, you can still make mocktails with juices.
Yeah.
Without your non-alcoholic spirits. But I think it's quite nice to have 0% gin and tonic and 0% wine and 0%.
I was going to say that I'm definitely seeing more 0% beers at weddings. I'm seeing more 0% Prosecco's. No Seccos being handed out. Particularly like, not even like for the whole religious reason, but even people that are pregnant or like just it's nice so that they can still feel included.
Yeah, I think gone are the days of just having Schlur and orange juice for the non-drinkers. No, I think it's true. And I think it's at that point it was an afterthought. You're either a child or you're pregnant or for whatever reason you don't drink.
Yeah.
But now where more and more people are drinking, I think it's a really nice thing to have where they don't feel like they're an afterthought.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. And maybe that's something we could talk about with our guest about just how to include non-drinkers more and like how their mocktails and non-alcoholic cocktails work, because I mean I don't know much about it, but I think if I wasn't drinking at a wedding I'd much prefer something that tasted like a margarita versus...
I wouldn't go.
Well, I would rather have a margarita tasting margarita that had 0% tequila versus a, you know, those like really fluorescent like bright blue mocktails that go around
people
on
like those.
They do, but they give me like, not give me an ick, but I just feel like they don't do it for me. So yeah, it would be good to talk about that with them. But anyways, we're going to wrap this up now because I feel like we're talking for a long time. So tune in next week when we will be talking about, I'm not entirely sure yet, maybe photo and video.
It is photo and video.
Oh, photo and video. And yeah, thank you guys.
Thanks for listening, guys. Please like, follow and subscribe for more.
Thanks for listening.
Please like, follow, subscribe for more.